Ladies and gentlemen, today I invite you to look at something we all fear, yet something that is inevitable: death. We live in a world so richly layered with emotions, experiences, relationships, dreams, and struggles. Amidst all of it, death is but a pause, not the end of the song. It's a comma, not a full stop. We must not let it overshadow the vitality and color of living. Each breath, each laugh, each tear we shed, these are the real essence of our story. In the grand narrative of existence, death is often mistaken for the final page, a decisive conclusion to everything we are and everything we do. Yet, when viewed from a broader lens, it becomes clear that death is not a monumental end, but rather a fleeting transition. It is a momentary pause in the symphony of life, a single frame in the film of an ever-evolving story. While we tend to fixate on its finality, death is merely a doorway, one of many transitions that mark the journey of a soul through time, experience, and consciousness. It is not the closing of a book, but rather a turn of the page, offering a change in perspective, a shift in state, but not a disappearance of meaning or memory. Human beings experience numerous forms of death throughout life: changes, farewells, transformations, and losses. The ending of a chapter in our lives, whether it be a job, a relationship, or a belief, often brings about a sense of mourning. Yet we do not consider these moments as definitive endings. Physical death, though more permanent in a biological sense, shares a similar rhythm with these life changes. It is a movement from one phase to another, a transformation that invites the continuation of our influence, love, and essence in ways not limited by physical presence. When we view death through this lens, it becomes less of a catastrophe and more of a continuation, an inevitable but not overpowering moment in the cycle of life. This perspective is echoed in various cultural philosophy and spiritual traditions around the world. Ancient philosophies often speak of death as a return, a merging with the universe, or a reawakening in another form. It is the body returning to nature, the memories living on in others, the lessons remaining in the world. From this vantage point, death is no more alarming than sleep, a necessary rest, a reset, not something that erases our existence, but something that redefines it. By internalizing the idea, that death is a small episode, we disarm the fear that so often paralyzes us. The fear of dying can rob us of the vibrancy of life, keeping us from taking risks, from expressing love, from living authentically. When we realize that death is not the dominant force we imagined, but a quiet pause in an otherwise rich and boundless journey, we are liberated. It becomes possible to live with presence and purpose, unshackled by the dread of what's to come. Death then loses its grip on our hearts and minds, not because it no longer exists, but because it no longer defines the story. When we take a step back and observe the vast tapestry of human life, we quickly realize that it is stitched together with countless moments of joy, struggle, learning, connection, and growth. These moments, large and small, form the true essence of who we are. Life is not defined by its conclusion, but by the vibrancy of what happens between birth and death. The laughter we share with friends, the tears we shed during heartbreak, the lessons learned through failure, and the peace found in stillness. All of these elements far outweigh the single event of death. Life is a complex, ever-evolving journey that cannot be overshadowed by the brief instant when it ends. Consider the sheer depth of a single human life. The memories, the emotions, the choices, and the transformations that take place over decades. Every person accumulates layers of experience that make their existence profound and irreplaceable. Death, though inevitable, is a mere fragment of this long and multidimensional experience. It holds no candle to the light of life lived fully. The years of learning, giving, receiving, and evolving are what give weight to a person's story. Death may close the physical chapter, but the richness of life continues to resonate in relationships, communities, and legacies long after one is gone. Moreover, life contains within it the full spectrum of the human condition: hope and despair, ambition and contentment, doubt and faith. These experiences are not simple or easily measured. They are deeply intricate, nuanced, and beautiful in their imperfection. The complexity of life is what makes it so powerful and meaningful. Each day brings a new blend of challenges and wonders, pushing us to grow, to reflect, and to reach towards something greater than ourselves. In comparison, death is a singular occurrence, an inevitable endpoint, but one that lacks the color, variety, and depth that make life so rich and magnificent. Even in the presence of loss, it is life that continues to speak. A loved one may pass, but their stories are retold, their lessons remembered, their values adopted by those they touched. A person's life radiates far beyond their physical presence, shaping others in countless unseen ways. That is the true power of life. It ripples, it echoes, it outlives the silence that follows death. The complexity and beauty of life are what make death so small in comparison. It is not the shadow that defines the light. Rather, it is the light that reminds us just how minor a shadow can be. Grief is often perceived as a negative emotion, one to be avoided, suppressed, or quickly healed. Yet at its core, grief is not just pain. It is evidence of deep love and meaningful connection. We do not grieve what we do not value. When we lose someone we care about, the grief we feel is a reflection of the bond we shared, the memories we created, and the role that person played in our life. Grief validates that something important existed that the connection was real, and that love had been given and received in a way that mattered profoundly. It is not a sign of weakness, but rather a mark of depth and sincerity in human relationships. Every tear shed in grief carries with it the weight of cherished moments, shared laughter, unspoken words, and collective experiences. It is the emotional proof that two lives were meaningfully intertwined. In this way, grief becomes a tribute, an emotional monument to the person we have lost. The intensity of our sorrow is directly tied to the intensity of our love. This realization can shift the way we experience grief. Instead of trying to escape it, we can begin to recognize it as an extension of the love we still hold for that person. The grief we lick gains control where love has no more place to go physically, yet still needs expression. Furthermore, grief helps preserve memory. Through the process of mourning, we reflect deeply on the qualities of the person we lost, recalling who they were and what they meant to us. Their voice, their touch, their values, and their quirks become etched even more clearly in our minds. Grief keeps their presence alive, even in absence. It helps transform our relationship with the deceased from a physical connection to a spiritual and emotional one. Although the body is gone, the bond continues in a different, unseen form, one that often grows more profound with time. This continuation is made possible by the grief that reminds us daily of what was and still is. Grief also connects us to others. It is a universal human experience that transcends language, culture, and geography. In moments of loss, people come together, not just to mourn, but to share, remember, and support. Funerals, memorials, and shared stories are all expressions of this communal bond. When we grieve together, we reinforce the idea that love and memory extend beyond the individual. They ripple outward and weave a larger human narrative. Human and people are limited. In this way, grief not only validates personal connection, but also strengthens collective humanity. It reminds us that to be human is to love, to lose, and to remember, and that these truths bind us in ways that even death cannot dissolve. When a person passes away, what remains is not only their memory, but also the legacy they leave behind. A powerful and enduring force that continues to influence the lives of others. Legacy is not confined to grand accomplishments or public achievements. It is found in the everyday choices, values, and kindnesses that quietly shape the world around us. The way someone treated others, the lessons they imparted, the love they offered, all of these form an invisible imprint on those who knew them. In this way, death does not mark the erasure of a person, but rather the beginning of their influence being carried forward by others, often in subtle and transformative ways. Our actions, whether intentional or not, plant seeds in the hearts and minds of people we encounter. A word of encouragement, a small act of generosity, a moment of honesty, all of these things ripple far beyond their original moment in time. Long after someone is gone, their voice echoes in the decisions we make, the wisdom we recall, and the ways we model our own lives. Children live out the values of their parents. Students echo the teachings of mentors, and friends carry forward the laughter and support of those no longer with them. Legacy in this sense is not just about what someone left behind. It's about what continues to grow in their absence. Even in silence, the impact of a life lived meaningfully continues to shape the world. Books are read, inventions are used, traditions are honored, and wisdom is passed down. All testaments to the fact that while bodies perish, contributions persist. This ongoing presence is what makes legacy so powerful. It breaks through the boundaries of mortality and extends a person's reach beyond their physical lifespan. Moreover, the concept of legacy gives death a new perspective. It turns finality into continuity. When people live with purpose and integrity, they create something that time cannot destroy. Their name might fade from public record, but their essence lives in the behavior, decisions, and inspirations of those they've touched. Legacy becomes a bridge between past and present, a thread connecting generations through values, love, and action. It reminds us that the goal of life is not just to survive, but to leave behind something meaningful that will endure. The awareness of death is not merely a grim shadow that looms over life. It is in fact one of the most powerful forces that gives life its depth and urgency. When we accept the reality that our time on this earth is limited, we begin to value it more intensely. Every moment, every interaction, every decision becomes more meaningful. We start to recognize the impermanence of things and are therefore more likely to cherish them. Without the inevitability of death, life might lose its vibrancy. It is death's certainty that makes each breath, each sunrise, each act of love, and each opportunity a rare and precious gift not to be squandered. This realization encourages us to live with intention. We are driven to set priorities, to stop delaying dreams, to mend broken relationships, and to pursue what truly matters. The ticking of the clock reminds us not to waste our days in bitterness or regret, but to cultivate joy, purpose, and connection while we can. It sharpens our focus and awakens our courage to live authentically, rather than conforming to the expectations of others. We begin to question what is genuinely worth our time and energy, and often discover that the things we once worried about are trivial when compared to the profound opportunity simply to be alive. Moreover, the presence of death strips away the illusion of permanence and control, humbling us and grounding us in the present moment. It teaches us that life is not a guarantee, and therefore we must learn to appreciate what we have right now. This conversation, this meal, this shared silence, this simple joy. It fosters gratitude, because when we know that nothing lasts forever, we begin to see how much we actually have. Our ordinary days become extraordinary in their fleeting beauty. Death reminds us that what we take for granted today may be gone tomorrow, so we must live not just routinely, but consciously, with hearts open to wonder and awareness. The knowledge of death can also lead us to greater compassion. Realizing that every person we meet is also carrying the weight of impermanence makes us kinder, more patient, more understanding. We come to see others not as obstacles or competitors, but as fellow travelers on a temporary journey. Through this lens, why is it so difficult? Separating this generously while we still have the chance. That is not just an ending, it is a silent motivator. That is so difficult. And it is a silent motivator. That is a silent motivator. That is a silent. While physical death may appear to mark the end of a person's existence, many cultures, beliefs, and personal experiences point toward a deeper truth, that something essential continues beyond the body's final breath. Across the world, spiritual traditions have long upheld the belief in a soul, spirit, or life force that outlives the flesh. From reincarnation in Eastern philosophies to the afterlife in Abrahamic religions, this shared conviction suggests that death is not a termination but a transition. It is a return, a rejoining, or a renewal in another realm or form. Even outside formal religion, many people report a deep intuitive sense that the energy of a loved one lingers, a feeling that they are still present in dreams, in coincidences, in nature, or in moments of unexpected peace. This sense of spiritual continuity offers profound comfort to those who grieve. When someone we love dies, we often speak of them watching over us, guiding us, or still being with us. These aren't merely poetic phrases, but expressions of an emotional truth that feels real and powerful. People often describe sensing a presence, hearing a familiar voice in their mind, or feeling an inner warmth at the thought of the departed. These experiences are not signs of denial, but reflections of an ongoing emotional bond. The relationships we form in life do not vanish at death's door. They evolve into something less tangible, but no less meaningful. The connection is not cut off. It changes its shape, deepens, and finds new pathways. Emotional continuity also exists in the legacy of influence and memory. When a person passes away, the impact they made continues to echo within us. Their advice may shape our decisions. Their humor may lift us in dark times, and their values may steer our actions. In this way, they become embedded in our emotional DNA. We carry them forward not only in our memories, but in the way we live our lives. Their essence blends with ours, forming a kind of psychological and spiritual inheritance. Even if we can no longer hold their hand or hear their voice, we find them in the quiet guidance of our own conscience. or in the smile of a grandchild who carries their spirit unknowingly forward. Furthermore, many people report personal experiences that hint at a reality beyond the physical. Near-death experiences, vivid visitations in dreams, inexplicable coincidences at the time of a loved one's passing. All of these defy scientific explanation, yet they resonate deeply with those who witness them. While not universally accepted as evidence, such phenomena reflect a widespread human intuition that death does not have the final say. Whether seen through the lens of spirituality, psychology, or mystery, there is a profound and persistent belief that something endures. This belief, whether rooted in faith or feeling, invites us to view death not as absolute absence, but as a transformation into a different kind of presence, one that continues to walk beside us, unseen but deeply felt. Yet the way we perceive death has a profound impact on how we live our lives. If we view death as a terrifying, all-coming end, it can breed fear, anxiety, and avoidance. But if we shift our perspective even slightly, we begin to see death not as an overwhelming force, but as a natural part of the cycle of existence. This change in mindset can liberate us from the grip of dread and open up a life filled with clarity and purpose. Perspective is not just a passive way of thinking. It is an active tool, a lens through which we choose to interpret the world. And with the right perspective, death becomes smaller, less dominant, and ultimately more manageable in the vast story of life. Human beings have the unique ability to reframe experiences, to find meaning in suffering, and to transform fear into wisdom. By reframing death as a small episode, something inevitable but not defining, we empower ourselves to focus on what really matters. Rather than being paralyzed by what is to come, we become animated by what is happening right now. This perspective allows us to live boldly, to take risks, to pursue passions without the constant shadow of mortality looming overhead. It enables us to see each day as an opportunity instead of a countdown, turning our attention toward gratitude and intention instead of anxiety and avoidance. Perspective also affects how we handle grief and loss. When we accept that death is a natural continuation of life, we begin to approach it with more grace and less resistance. This does not eliminate the pain of losing someone, but it can soften the despair and help us navigate it with compassion. A healthy perspective does not deny the sadness, but it adds context and depth. It reminds us that the person we lost was part of a beautiful, interconnected narrative, that their story does not end with their final breath. Their influence, presence, and meaning endure. Seeing death through this lens fosters resilience and a sense of continuity that mere logic cannot provide. Culturally and individually, how we choose to think about death shapes not only our emotional well-being, but also the quality of our relationships and goals. Those who make peace with death often live more freely, love more deeply, and connect more authentically. They are less consumed by petty worries and more focused on what truly matters. This is the power of perspective. It shifts death from being a dark and dominant figure into a silent teacher that reminds us of life's fragility and brilliance. When we embrace this view, we no longer see death as an antagonist to be feared, but as a quiet companion that urges us to live each moment with courage, presence, and meaning. In the end, what truly defines us is not how we die, but how we live, how we love, how we grow, how we impact those around us, and how we embrace the fleeting beauty of existence. Death will visit as it must, but it does not deserve to be the centerpiece of our story. It is merely a pause, a whisper, a small episode here and there. The real narrative lies in the courage to live fully, to leave behind traces of kindness, and to find meaning even in impermanence. Even so, let us not fear death, but let us honor life by living it with open hearts, purposeful steps, and an unwavering commitment to what truly matters.